Who is Twilight Valentine? He was a being created by Veldanava to serve as the ancestor of humans. They are responsible for the creation of humans, demi-humans, and various other races such as the vampires and giants. Although Twilight's appearance hasn't been described, it can be surmised that they looked extremely similar to their daughter Luminous. However, due to Twilight lacking gender, they would naturally look much more androgynous. Twilight could best be described as a mad scientist whose insatiable lust for experimentation and perfection lead to often dangerous results, eventually resulting their own death. They, however, didn't seem to have any desire to rule the world, instead assigning that task to its various pupils, which could be called Twilight's children. When Veldanava created reality, he did so with the purpose of ending his loneliness. In pursuit of that goal, Veldanava wished to populate the world with a race of immortal men, and to do so, he created Twilight Valentine. Twilight, however, was a perfect and immortal being with no concept of gender and no reproductive ability to speak of. Thus, in order for Twilight to fulfill the wishes of their creator, they took to using their intellect and managed to synthesize two different types of beings from their own body: the high humans and the vampires. The high humans possessed mortal but lengthy lifespans and an innate capacity for knowledge and magic, but their massive egos and self-destructive tendencies made them failures. The vampires had the immortality that Veldanava sought, but their reliance on blood and intolerance to sunlight made them unsuited for populating the earth. Twilight did manage to create a more traditional offspring in the form of their separated alter ego Luminous Valentine, but it wasn't something they could do again, and it would seem that she didn't wish to reproduce, meaning that route was a no-go. Twilight went back to the drawing board and eventually came up with the idea of incarnating elementals that had split from the 8 great holy spirits into bodies of human flesh to create immortals. This succeeded and created the fairy races of the High Elves, High Dwarves, Enki, and Sirens. But the amount of time and effort it took to gather powerful elementals and their low rate of reproduction led to them being few in number and thus unable to populate the planet. Twilight, never one to falter, continued their research and tried to make more of the immortal fairy races using science. The resulting elves, dwarves, oni, and merfolk, however, lacked the eternal life and high reproductive capabilities needed, with many other unsuccessful and more monster-like races also being produced as a byproduct. Twilight also created a race of humans that were hybridized with magical beasts, creating the lycanthropes. Ultimately, Veldanava settled on the humans as his race of choice. They were weak and lacked long lifespans, but they had an innate capacity for growth and a very high reproductive rate. With the matter settled, humans were spread to various different dimensions to develop and inhabit numerous worlds. Back on the central world, Twilight urged their pupils, the originals and ancestors of the various species they created, to create kingdoms that would help manage and sustain the lesser members of their species. This status quo continued for a long time, with Twilight occupying the passing time by continuing to experiment. Twilight created the giants using data gathered from true giants, and presented the siblings Basara and Kasara to Dagruel, with whom Twilight had formed a close friendship. Twilight's experiments also resulted in the creation of powerful monsters, such as the bloodthirsty Valentine, which often escaped and had to be dealt with by the Mediator. At some point, Luminous had grown tired of Twilight's antics and ended their life with a powerful disintegration spell. Twilight was eventually killed by Luminous Valentine after their experiments got too out of hand.